Welcome to Wildspire. You get to be a fly on the wall for my intimate conversations with entrepreneurs who are changing the world. I'm your host, Stephanie Benedetto, coach, storyteller, and unmarketer at The Awakened Business, helping coaches and change-making entrepreneurs unleash their inspired message and share it with playful unmarketing. I'll ask curious questions and explore uncharted waters with my guest today. Anything can happen when we step into the unknown of infinite creativity, and that's where we're going to play. My guest today is Kate Roberts, a dear friend and transformative coach. Now, pretty much whenever I get together with Kate, we end up waxing spiritual philosophical, and this conversation is no different. It was an absolute joy for me. Kate has a way of inviting me to peer over the edge of what I know into the vastness of something new. This is one of my favorite things to do, by the way, which is probably why I enjoy her so much. In this conversation, we talk about contemplation and action and ask the question, what is living stillness? And we talk about the gift of being quiet and asking questions without needing an answer for them. Kate Roberts is a transformative coach. She spent the first half of her career as a high school teacher, where she discovered that her gifts lay less in teaching history and more in creating space for young people to show up as the best versions of themselves. Since then, Kate has created in the businesses of massage therapy, property management, and coaching. She loves reading, yoga, journaling, and cooking for others. Kate is the creator and co-host of a podcast called Under the Noise with fellow coach Win Morgan. Though her deepest love is the exploration of truth with teenagers, former teenagers, or within her own personal journey. It is my pleasure to introduce you to Kate Roberts. Hello, Kate, my dear. Welcome to Wildspire.
Yeah.
It is so wonderful to have you here. And I was thinking that it might be fun to, since I got to appear on your podcast that you co-host with Win Morgan, and you had asked me to just share something instead of a traditional bio kind of talking points. Like you said to me something like, what would you like people to know about you, or what would you like to share? So I want to ask you that, Kate. What would you like for me and anyone who happens to listen to this to know about you right now?
Oh my goodness. I should have expected that. Well, I guess I'm a former high school teacher. I taught high school for almost 15 years before I transitioned into coaching. I found after I did that, I realized that the thing that I offered young people, like I was less of a good teacher and more of a person that created a space for them to show up as the best version of themselves. So when people ask me, about that transition from teaching to coaching, it doesn't actually seem like that big of a jump because I feel like that's really what I did for them. And now as a coach, I create space for people to show up as the best version of themselves. And sometimes really that can look like anything. I haven't really coached a whole lot. I just didn't focus on the business part of it. I've been working in other businesses and other areas and creating in that space. Spent some time doing a blog. As you said, I have a podcast. I seem to be super interested in coaching young people again. And that looks like the direction I might be headed in, is spending time with young people, teenagers again. They're spectacular. And I guess on a more personal note, I feel like I've seen some things for myself about how we work as human beings. And lately I've found more peace in my life than I ever have. I don't think I did anything for that.
Damn, you mean you don't have a proven formula you could sell me, Kate? The
Absolutely.
peace formula?
I have no formula for that. I find that I'm starting to no longer believe every thought that shows up.
Hmm.
And in that space is so much freedom and peace. And I've seen a little bit of that for myself.
Hmm. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Now I get to share what I have seen and experienced of you, just a little piece from when we first met. And I remember in particular when we met for lunch, because, you know, how cool we get to actually hang out in person. And I had a really busy mind that day. And I sat down with you and you were so still and quiet. And I don't think I'd realized how busy my mind was until then because it was so loud. And I was like kind of squirming on the inside. Like, oh my God, like she's so quiet. Like this is awkward. But it really didn't take me very long before I just settled down and got a little quieter myself and met you there. And that's what I've found in you every time we interact ever since is like, oh, there's this space. You described it as the space that, you know, allows people to be their best selves or discover the best version of themselves, right? There's just space. And I can do anything that I want with it, but I mean, that sounds like a pretty good idea, right? Like discovering the best version of myself. And to me, that is the space. The space is the best version of me. It's not just when I'm at my best, it is my best, that space of quietness. And so for me, you are a profound invitation to that, an uncommon invitation to that.
That was amazing. Thank you.
So, all right, I'm going to ask you about this because we were talking about this before and it's so beautiful. So tell me about this contemplation, this fresh contemplation that you're in about living stillness and what that means to you.
The question showed up for me this morning just in my quiet time. It's it's usually very easy for me to drop into a quieter space when I'm doing my quiet time, I'm alone, got my blanket and my coffee, my journal, my books, and all of the things that I love to do in the morning. And lately, like the kind of busyness or kind of action in my life has, like, the pace is increased. And while I feel very peaceful, I'm just doing, it doesn't feel frenetic like that. It just feels like, actioning, doing, living. I'm living life. I'm living, the business. And I mean, it all just feels like my life and all the people that I care about and spend time with and conversations that I have. But I would love to have that same kind of feeling of presence, like paying attention, like seeing it play out and just being more present when I'm moving quickly. And so that idea of living stillness is this, that was the question. I don't know if I've really experienced that. I've definitely experienced a very stressful and frenetic movement, but this new place doesn't feel that way. But I also feel like there might be a deeper place in that I haven't really made it to yet. Mm. And I know that there's a perfection to what I'm seeing and a timing to it all. And sometimes for me, it really does start about sitting in that question, things that I'm curious about. Like I get a sense that there's a deeper space. And sometimes it's just being open to the question without needing to force an answer or for anything in my present moment to be different. I don't know if that makes any sense, but that was the kind of question, is what's possible in this living stillness.
Hmm. So as you say that, I think, what is living stillness? Do you have a sense of it? Can you speak to it even though you maybe have not experienced it or don't know that you've experienced it?
Well, it actually came from a book. I don't have it in front of me, so it's not even my words, but I read it. It was a quote inside a book. And it said, living stillness without trying to be still. And then it moves further into it. And that's probably not an exact quote. But it's without the effort of trying, I think. And something about that really just spoke to me because I've spent the majority of my life moving very quickly, feeling like everything that happened was on me. And I've also had things slow way down at times. And now I'm coming into this place where the movement is accelerating in a really fun way. And I don't feel like I'm getting in my way as much as I used to. There's just a peace about that. But in hearing those words, it kind of opened up a possibility that there was a deeper space. In the movement of life. Like almost like those words hit me and resonated in a way that it was an invitation for a new space within movement. And I know in the coaching world, especially our type of coaching, there's a lot of mention of this, effortless change and, creating from a place of joy rather than stress. And, there's a lot of talk about that. Something about the idea of living stillness takes these two, I think, into something else that's possible.
Mm.
Like an invitation that came from inside. If that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
An internal invitation for something new, something deeper.
I felt something as you spoke about that living stillness, Kate. It felt like being able to be the rush of the river, like to be able to be it and also know the stillness and the depth of the river itself at the same time. That's the feeling I had when you were speaking about it. And I think there is a misunderstanding about stillness and quiet and slowing down. And I think that you in particular are onto something here because of the unique form of the universe that you are, that you're bringing this as a gift. You are an invitation to living stillness. And so what I've seen is that especially people who have some kind of spiritual understanding or spiritual practice, they find this place of stillness, this space that we can call many things: quiet, mind, God, source, spirit, oneness. And it's so beautiful. And they find it through practices that often, not always, but often are about physical stillness, like meditation, or lack of mental chatter or engagement, like being in the woods and going for a very contemplative walk. But those same people somehow misunderstand that that's where stillness lives. And that's how you find it, is through quiet practices, through retreating from the world of things, the world of 10,000 things. And that they need to somehow shift into another mode in order to do stuff. And I don't think that that's true. I mean, sure, you can, but I don't think that's the only way, right? Like, there is this state of flow that we can be in where we're very, very active, like that moving river, like that moving current. Like, it's just, there's so much happening, and yet it's quiet inside. We're still in the stillness. And I had a conversation just last week with someone they were talking about what we came to was this idea of contemplation in action. So what is it to have that contemplative peace, that stillness, while you are moving and creating and being very, very active in the world? So it's like taking these things that they are not in opposition. They're not mutually exclusive. In fact, the stillness is always there, though we're not necessarily always in touch with or aware of it or feeling it. And allowing that, allowing that stillness to do the moving is how it seems almost, because you were asking that question before. Can I just like watch it unfold? Not be so caught up in it that I can actually see it as it's happening. Like see myself in the movie as I'm living it. What is that bring up?
Sense that it's possible to pay attention, but from a space that feels more like a noticing than an efforting, like paying attention. And like you said, that the stillness, that part of us, is, I believe, life living through us. And I do think that it actually is possible just to pay attention to how we're being lived. Like almost like just living in a different gear. And I think, for most of my life, I've definitely been in like, a high gear where I'm so, not sure what the right word is, but so in the movement and so fast paced with very little space. And then I've had, like lower gears where things really slow down, but I think there's another gear. It's almost like, in like the newer kind of Batmobile where he can slide in and focus, right? And he's like going really fast and he can slide back out into the driver's seat into a different way of driving. And I'm wondering if, I've never to up to this point lived in that way of living stillness with faster paced movement, but a stillness that's really running the show. Okay, that's probably a lie. It's always been running a show. Like, but am I noticing that it is? Or am I so just caught up that I don't even notice that that's what's happening? So maybe that's the gear. The gear is just being aware and noticing that stillness is actually taking care of the action and life is living through me, through everyone, in a very beautiful way. But I'm not sure if I've dropped into a gear where I notice that that's what's happening in my life.
It's interesting. As I contemplate this, I'm like asking myself, like, what would that be like? And I mean, it sounds really cool. And also, so I picture myself a lot of times or think of myself as a room or as a space, right? Where these experiences move through me. And if I am knowing myself as that space, as that awareness, I can watch them as they move and kind of be aware of them, even as they're moving me. Like there's enough space that I can go, oh, look, Stephanie's feeling this. She's feeling happy. Oh, she's doing that silly thing she does. Look at that. Oh, wow. Like there's a bit of there's an awareness of what's happening as it's happening. I'm not so swept up in it that's the energies moving through me seem like they are me and they are the world. I'm kind of aware of, and yet I suspect, so this is, I don't know, like I'm just riffing here, right? But like I suspect that there's a way in which there is no gap, there is no space between the space that is me and the experience moving through it that is bigger than me and not me at the same time, that's so immersive that even noticing would be a deterrent. So it's not like being caught up in my thinking that gives me an experience of disconnection from the stillness and disconnection from the peace and disconnection from the space and the consciousness, but it's actually so present that it doesn't even need the noticing to experience presence inside the movement. That was very strange what I just said. Did that make any sense at all?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Well, tell me.
I'm sitting with it. See, I wonder though, this is my
Yeah,
counter wonder.
poke,
My
poke.
counter wonder. So I wonder if that's really always been at play. But what's so beautiful about being human and what separates us from the intelligence that is at play in everything, including us, is our ability to notice. That's what makes being human so spectacular. I think part of why we're here is to notice from our very human vantage point. The intelligence that we're a part of and how it plays out. And when we think that our personal mind, like our intellect and all the thoughts running through it all the time is who we are, and we're too distracted to notice. And there is a flow, I think, a flow state in life where that's happening and we're very present and we almost don't even notice in the moment that but then afterward you're like, oh my gosh, that was so cool, because you notice after the fact. I don't know and it's a super good question, and one that I feel so much gratitude to even ponder and chit chat with you about.
Mm-hmm. It feels rich. It feels like it opens up something that's alive and beautiful and like deeply alive and beautiful and moving. And the experience of that. As you were talking, I'm like, I want it all, like the whole thing. So I love the metaphor that you've probably heard Mavis Karn use, or at least I heard it. Maybe I didn't hear her say it, but I heard it quoted as from her. So I hope she said it because she's getting credit, right? She said many beautiful things. So we could just add this to the list. Describing our minds, our being as like like a mighty river, like the Mississippi River. And at the top, it's very choppy. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of thought. There's a lot of stuff happening. And then if you drop down, maybe 4 or 6 feet, there's this current where you can just flow. There's a lot of movement, but it's flow. It's like, and then if you drop down all the way to the bottom, there is this stillness and quiet. It's almost like no movement at all. And all of that is the river. All of that is available at all times. And I'm like, I love the idea of being aware enough, being able to notice and contemplate being lived by life, because it's such a beautiful thing. It's like, wow, I'm being lived, And there's something also beautiful about just being in the flow of that being lived, just being so lost in it that it takes me. Like I get to have the experience and I'm not even aware of myself at all enough to know that life is living me, because there's no separation between me and life in that. And it's only when I come out of it come a little bit out of the experience that I can go, like you said, oh my God, that was so cool. Like that was, did you see it? Like, I'm just so lost. Like me is lost, doesn't even exist, is just in the being lived. And then I can like come back and contemplate and see it. Like that's the dance for me. I think like I want that dance, and even getting caught up in shit and then being able to see that I'm caught up in shit and then being able to come back to the stillness and be lived from the stillness and lose myself again. And it's like this dance, and all these things are because I don't think it's ever going to be just the one, but I can enjoy the dance, the roller coaster ride, the waves of it, right? Like the whoo, here we go again. And yeah, that's kind of what's coming to me. But this, yeah.
Yeah, I love that. We get to experience all of that.
It gives me this zoomed out perspective of like, no, and you said it, that I don't remember how you said it, but it was essentially like that intelligence has been making it happen behind the scenes all along. Like we've always been being lived, always, regardless of what our experience was. That is life living us. That is the intelligence animating us and lighting up our experience with thought, no matter what form, how pleasant or unpleasant it is. It's always been that. And so like it's equally beautiful, any of those. And yet we get to ask a question, respond to an invitation to go deeper into this idea of, wow, noticing that I'm actually being lived, because that has a feeling that's really beautiful.
It brings me to my knees sometimes. And at the same time, discovering that, seeing for myself that I'm not who I thought I was in my story of who I was. Something about seeing that a bit more each day. I'm discovering the gift most equally as that feeling that sometimes brings me to my knees. The gift of holding it lightly, of honoring the times when I'm just in the choppy water. Without judgment, without needing it to be better. I don't know if it's just having this conversation with someone earlier today that I don't know if we could honor it. We didn't see it for what it was. Not who we are, just caught up. And then seeing that, we get to welcome it as much as the experience of the joy that sometimes brings us to our knees. Never been able to honor that.
Now, I was just talking to someone yesterday. We were talking about presence. And she was noticing that she had a fear of being present. And when I asked her about it, it wasn't a fear of feeling sadness or anger, or a lot of times, for some people, they have an experience that when they get quiet and they're present, all that noise in their head gets really loud, and then they start feeling it. And then they've been trying not to feel it by keeping themselves busy, and now they're not busy. And so they feel it all. I'm like, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that. And we did a little experiment. And I said, well, how present would you say you are right now? 0 to 100. I know we're making this up, but what would you say? And she said, 70. Like, okay, well, what if you become a little more present right now? Would you be willing to do that and see what happens? She said, okay. So she just closed her eyes and she got more present. And I asked her what that was like. And she said, it's emotional. So that's not a word for it, but, and then she went on to describe that when she is very still, she feels this love that's so overwhelming. It feels like she can't hold it. And it comes out her eyes. And it just almost incapacitates her. And she's like, do other people feel this? And I don't know if that's what you were talking about when you spoke of the joy that brings you to your knees. But I thought it was interesting that it's exquisitely beautiful and painful, her experience of it, the way she described it, like achingly beautiful. So that if I'm present and that's there, I need to be less present to be able to function. And I thought about that and I puzzled over it because I have not had that experience like that, though I have had moments that felt exquisitely beautiful. They never felt like they were going to shatter me, or that they were going to go on for so long that I couldn't handle them. Even pain, when I'm really with it, like grief or agony, if I'm with it, it comes in waves. Even when it's coming, it comes in waves. It's not just straight on. And so I'm wondering about this as you're talking about it, and maybe what you see, if you've seen something like that, or you hear something in her experience as related through me that could, I don't know, show us something new there.
She won't break. You might have a story about being nervous that she might, but she won't. Because it's just who we are. And she can let it in, it'll be okay. Just like we can let in our experiences, like you said, like pain or loss or loneliness. We can let those in too. Because no matter what story we put around them about how long they're going to last, they don't last forever. They never do. Byron Katie would say, well, do you go to sleep at night? Because it stops. There is a reprieve. It stops. Even for a while.
Yeah, we don't break from the loss and we don't break from the love.
I think we're literally built for all of it. Like you said, every experience.
Yeah.
We want it all.
And even the dissolving, right? Because another friend of mine and I were talking about the sense of the dissolving of the self that can happen in that. Like, wow, like the borders of me have just disappeared. And, like I'm losing myself in this vast field of infinite potential, love, peace, whatever. Like, and then there's a fear of what we might call ego mind going, no, I don't want to, like, what if we really are designed to be able to dissolve and reform? And there's really not any difference in them. It's just what we make up about it. Like having that experience of losing myself in something and then noticing that I'm losing myself in something and then coming back to being fully immersed in something.
Well, I think we are created to be able to experience that because even if, like in our physical life experience, a lot of people have never experienced that they can remember, right? But when we transition, all of our stories and self fall away. We just get to have fun with it now.
Lucky us. Just us and the other spiritual geeks who like to contemplate these things.
So serious. It's fun. I've had some experience with that discomfort that your friend's talking about, where it is this like you just want to pull up all your beliefs and pick them back up again and try to like patch them around you because it feels so uncomfortable until you realize that your story about it's not okay to be uncomfortable. You realize you see that as a story and you're like, what? Another okay.
Mm. Yeah, there's a beauty in all of it. So I want to ask you, Kate, because there was a way that you said it earlier about you're feeling drawn to young people. And you said something like, they're amazing. And you said it in a way that I just want to know what you see. Like what is so fascinating, amazing, that draws you to young people and being this space for them?
I was we had another coach, Erica Bugby, on our podcast who a good piece of her practice is working with teenagers. And she was talking about teenagers in a way that she said, they're just experiencing the same things that we all do as human beings, but for them, the volume is turned way up. And no matter what they think, because the volume's turned way up for them, it's almost like they can't really hide it. They haven't figured out like adults how to just lock that down and and I love that about them because it's very authentic and it's loud, but it's true. And I found that around teenagers, especially at least in teaching, that when their volume's way up, I sink into this quieter space and they meet me there. They don't know what to do with me or make of that. I had some students ask me one time, they're like, do you ever yell? Because they don't know what to do with teachers who don't raise their voice, right? They're like, do you ever yell, like even at your daughter? And I'm like, sure. I'm sure I yell at her. And they look at me and they're like, nah. They don't know what to make of that. But they got a lot going on.
Mm.
They got a lot on. And we live in a time where not only do they have a lot on, but now they have a lot on. And it's out there for the world to see and listen to. And I love the space where they start to catch on that everything is temporary, that they're going through, that they feel. They don't know it. They don't always know that it's temporary. And that's why, the young people who take their own lives or hurt their bodies in some way, they just don't realize that it'll pass if they let it. And if it feels like, oh my gosh, this will be forever, this is how it's forever going to feel, makes sense. Then you get to see them the next day and they made it through. Love that.
Mm.
And they figure out these beautiful ways of coping, getting under the noise for a bit. Whether or not they play video games or listen to music or distract themselves on technology, like they figure out a way to turn the volume down for a little bit. I think they're so smart. I just don't know it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so resilient. Feeling things at like 200%, yeah. And they still show up in life.
Mm.
I respect them.
Mm. What I hear in all that is that respect and reverence and recognition of the intelligence in them in a way that transcends the differences of language and generations and culture and the things that adults often say about children as if, oh, well, you just don't get it, like, or wait till you learn kind of, that it just says no, like actually sees the brilliance of them as they are at play in action, that aliveness that's animating them and the genius that's helping them to find those coping mechanisms and find an escape in whatever way makes sense to them. And how they're doing that without knowing these few simple, like without knowing that they're doing it. And if they knew what was happening, they could see it. They could find that intelligence and motion in them and fall back into that resilience that it offers and not have to, then not feel so desperate. Like you're saying, like things will change. This too shall pass, because all things pass. All our experiences pass anyway. It's really beautiful.
One of the things that I was telling Erica on the podcast is I have a 15-year-old daughter, and we've been in these types of conversations for a bit. But a few years back, I got her this t-shirt, and I gave it to her and I said, on the nights when you need it, just a reminder. So she hung it up on her closet in case she needed it one night. And on the t-shirt, it said, not to spoil the ending, but everything's going to be okay. And so on nights when she just was having a hard time, she'd put on the t-shirt and wear that to bed. And as a reminder, I guess, when she needed it. I think she has a sense that it doesn't last forever. It's actually really cute. She'll be having a night and she'll just say, I'm going to go reset. And she'll go to bed. I'm going to go reset. I'm like, okay. Yeah.
Oh, everything is knowing there's a reset button. Like we're just one moment away from clean slate, reset, fresh start. There we go. Bam.
Well, we just forget that we are a fresh start.
Time expands when I'm with you, Kate. I'm really not kidding. It's like we go on these intergalactic journeys through time and space, between time and space, beyond the boundaries of time, space, and matter.
Oh, we gotta go.
I don't want to make it stop. I don't want to do that time thing. That sucks. Oh, God. Oh, my goodness. So that's such a beautiful note to leave us. Now, like hysterical laughter. Stephanie breaks down. And where can people connect with you if they would like to talk more about living stillness or introduce you to their teens?
They can email me at kate@katerobertscoaching.com and check out my website if they like. I don't have a lot on there about teens and whatnot. That seems to be a new direction for me. But that's katerobertscoaching.com.
Cool. And I'm going to post the links to your website and also to your podcast, Under the Noise, which is such a gorgeous invitation to slow down, get quiet, experience more presence, and see something new that's beyond the noise of everyday life. Thanks so much for joining me for today's Wildspire conversation. If you'd like to receive a weekly Wildspire email from me filled with inspiring stories, unmarketing experiments, tips for playing your way to impact and income without the hustle and hype, insights from my spiritual business journey, and more, go to theawakenedbusiness.com/wildspire. Until next time, may you know yourself as the gorgeous wild creation you are.